there is a way to begin that is so mind-bogglingly easy that I don't even think you'll believe me until you hear my stories. I am a teacher, and I encourage wonder. Let's begin with some stories of some students I've known over the years. In 8th grade, young Steve was feeling disenfranchised from the social world of middle school, and yet he felt comfortable in our classroom, and he loved to learn. He wondered how to make balloon animals. 7th grade Kyle came into my classroom, looked at the various equipment, and he wondered if he could do light projection experiments. 8th grade Tessa seemed sad one day, and I asked her what was going on. She said, "I'm just not enjoying science class, and it used to be my favorite subject." This leads to my question that we teachers get asked all the time. How can we prepare students for a future that we ourselves can't predict? So let's follow along. Thank you. This is Steve. At the end of 4 months, he taught himself how to make over a dozen balloon animals. There were several explosions in my classroom. We got used to it because wonder can be messy and noisy. This is Kyle in 7th grade. He pulled together my old overhead projector and my new smartboard projector side by side. First thing he tried was to mix light in the air by putting colored paper in front of the projectors. Next, he projected it onto a variety of 3D surfaces, and he was very intrigued by the distortion that he saw. And then he created something in combination with my smartboard and Scratch Animation, which is a free programming software online. Super fun, anybody can check it out. He combined the two to create a shadow ball. Now this shadow ball was available for kids to throw. They could throw it, they could catch it, it would bounce, and Kyle tinkered with the ideas to make sure that the velocity would be realistic. I was hoping the video would work, but it froze because it's so magical. You're going to have to imagine this shadow ball moving. Now, hopefully the masterpiece works. If it doesn't, I'm going to walk you through it. Kyle's masterpiece started with a simple cardboard box, which he covered in white paper. He taped it to a camera tripod, tipped it at an isometric angle, onto which he projected an animation of a Rubik's Cube. When people walked in my classroom, it looked for all the world like a giant Rubik's Cube was solving itself. That is a well-deserved smile on that young man's face. It was the closest I have come to teaching at Hogwarts. The next student, Tessa, here she is in 6th grade. We did a simulated archaeological dig in 6th grade, and she was on fire. She loved it. So I went to her 8th grade teacher, and I said, Tessa loves science. Her teacher was skeptical because her grades were not that great, but she agreed to take a risk. She let Tessa do her own wonder project. Tessa chose to do solar technology. She taught the class how photovoltaic cells work. She showed them examples of current products on the market with their pros and cons. And she took us on a worldwide tour to show how solar technology was already being used around the world. Her teacher was impressed, not just by the level of Tessa's scholarship, but by the sparkle in her eye. So that teacher then let other students try wonder projects. So now let's fast forward for a moment. Steve starts his own business in 8th grade, and he starts performing magic tricks and making balloon animals at parties all over Westport and beyond. He goes on to college where he gets a business degree. And at the end, he pauses. He says, I was on such a traditional track, and now suddenly I'm a free agent. So he did something extraordinary. He took 9 months, and he traveled the world. He went to refugee camps and orphanages, and he made balloon animals wherever he went. He first stopped in Israel, where he worked at a school for children with learning disabilities. Then he went on through Egypt. This is an image of him spontaneously making balloon animals right before a border crossing. In Thailand, Steve met students who were in programs intended to help them avoid human trafficking. Next, in Indonesia, he stopped at a place where children had developmental delays. In Vietnam, Steve met members of the Hmong people who were known around the world for their amazing storytelling cloths. They had never seen balloon animals before. He was over the moon to introduce a new art form to them. Now, in Nepal, Steve meets a young boy named Namit. Namit keeps coming back, curious as all get out about these balloon animals. So over the course of a week, Steve actually teaches Namit how to make several animals. Namit wants to know more. And Namit wonders, can I start my own business making balloon animals? Imagine, do you think 7th and 8th grade Steve thought for a moment he'd be in Nepal teaching a 7-year-old boy to start his own balloon animal business? What wonder comes full circle? Amazing. Fun fact, Steve paid for this entire 9-month trip using the money he had saved up over the years from his little entertainment business. Steve now works connecting young volunteers with programs that fight human trafficking, and he is making a difference for children all over the world. Here's Kyle. He's a high school sophomore, and he has moved on from light projection directly into web development. One of the funniest things he showed me was he wrote code to create a mustache. It would find the photo of a face on any website. You could go anywhere. It doesn't have to be Facebook. You could go to like Wikipedia or whatever, and it would put a mustache on whatever face it found. It was very amusing. He developed another one that moved on in sophistication, where he created a few windows on a screen. Each window would fill with water, and then he could connect them so that the water levels would balance out between them. Don't ask me how on earth he wrote this code. It's a brilliant effect. Really cool. And he also volunteers right here in the Westport Library in the Makerspace, which we highly encourage you to visit. And now he's joined the robotics team at Staples, so watch out, Dean Kamen. Fun fact, Kyle wrote one of my all-time favorite thank you cards. He wrote, "Thank you for giving me a classroom without ceiling or walls." I'd like to acknowledge Kyle. He's right there. Yay, Kyle! So terrific. And now let's see what happened with Tessa. Tessa went on in high school to work at a college science lab on the weekends. She did intensive science camps in the summers. And then she actually invented a battery and holds a patent for it. She's now studying physics, and you can't see it in this picture, but she's wearing earrings in the shape of beakers. It's very cute. Fun fact, Tessa was offered a Teal Fellowship. These are those fellowships that encourage kids to skip college and go right to starting a business around that battery patent of hers. Instead, she chose to go to MIT. So I'm thrilled. I pause here to wonder, what if? What if Steve had been told that balloon animals were not a rigorous enough subject to study in school? What if Kyle had been told that he needed to clearly define his outcomes before he could begin? What if we had not listened to Tessa when she was losing her enthusiasm for science? What could have been lost if we had shut the door to wonder? I stand before you not as a researcher, but as a practitioner. And so I share my stories with you, not data. And these are just 3 among many. The concept sounds simple, but it's not simplistic. Each of these 3 children have faced barriers and personal hardships along the way. And a lot goes on behind the scenes when you encourage student wonder, such as establishing trust, connecting students to resources, and carving out the time to let the projects unfold. This is becoming a challenge with the increasingly rigid demands in our school systems nationwide. It's also tough to overcome individual student doubts, but I hope you agree with me that this journey is very well worth it. Now this morning, because I'm pretty restless and I have to keep working on things, I continued working on what I was going to share with you, and I found a great quote. This is by Reverend Victoria Stafford, who wrote an essay, The Small Work in the Great Work. She says, once you have glimpsed the world as it might be, as it ought to be, as it's going to be, it is impossible to live compliant and complacent anymore in the world as it is. So let's go back to that question that teachers and, frankly, all of us get asked all the time. How can we prepare children for a future that we ourselves cannot predict? I think you know the key. Let's wonder. Thank you.